Okay. So I think we can begin. I am so happy to have you here with us today. And thank you so much for joining us. My name is Cecilia André. I am the curator of scale within the artist practice. Somebody is unmuted. Maybe somebody who just started.
Yeah.
We're going to do a remute. Yeah. There we go. Today, we are broadcasting live from the Great Hall Gallery at the First Presbyterian Church. We are via Zoom due to COVID restrictions. And yet we feel really grateful for being able to have a physical exhibition, which I will show you shortly, and have in-person visiting hours starting tomorrow. So come visit us Thursdays and Fridays from 12 to 4 p.m. at 12 West 12th Street. So that's almost in the corner of Fifth Avenue. And right now, when in-person services at the First Presbyterian Church resumes, we will also have visiting hours for our show from 12 to 3 p.m. The show will run until March 20th. I want to introduce you to Audrey Webber, who you've seen. She is the head of art at First Committee.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to have you all here. And I just want to say thank you to Cecilia for making this whole show happen, as well as to Barbara Sherman, one of our co-chairs of Art at First, as well as our whole committee. It's been a wonderful experience working not one show, but now 2 shows with Cecilia. So we held on to her for as long as we could. So thank you, Cecilia.
Yeah, thank you. So we are going to give you a small view of the show, of the space, because for starters, it's a beautiful space. And we have 15 artists showing today. Audrey, swivel that way. Okay, I think that's good. Oh, okay.
And please show Yvette's piece, which is high up.
Okay, we will do that. Great idea. That is an essential part as well. Okay, voila. I wanted to say that scale refers to a relationship between sizes and is never an absolute measure. I suspect that we tend to think of things as being large or small according to our visible or graspable capacities. The dynamic change of scale in the architecture of Great Hall Gallery itself is the inspiration for the theme of this show. The gallery's expansive vaulted ceilings, as you can see, it's really great to be in here, contrast with the intimate area beneath the mezzanine, which you have seen here, not to mention these beautiful windows, right? This is the second iteration of the scale show, which now explores landscapes and abstraction. Most artists showcase 2 pieces of contrasting sizes. However, 2 artists represent only large scale and small scale, and only small scale, creating a dialogue with all the other works in the show. Let's begin. So the first artist we will pin her and she will introduce herself which is Susan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Susan Krucci, and I want to thank you, Cecilia, for all of the hard work you and the others have contributed in an especially difficult time. It added meaning to the exhibit and to our community. My large oil painting, Across the Horizon, came from an experiment, a completed work in one sitting. Creating luminosity using different mediums was the way to find freedom in a restricted time frame. Now, the Hunter Lake Cottage oil painting, the smaller painting, came from a different experiment with palette knives. Smaller canvases, 5x7, put near larger works in progress. The larger works demand attention. The smaller ones offered a respite and perspective for the larger work. The opportunities abound regardless of material and space. Cecilia, thank you for this opportunity to be here this afternoon.
Thank you, Susan. Really nicely said. I am now going to ask Beth Berry, who has these two works of contrasting sizes, to come share the screen with me.
Hi, hello, everybody. Nice to see all of you. Again, Cecilia, thank you. Barbara Sherman, everyone who's participated. It's great to be part of a group show like this and to get to know people more intimately.
Beth,
Yeah.
will you just tell us the titles of
Okay.
your works, and I will
I forgot
ask
about
a
that.
question.
Okay, the large painting is called Gestural Landscape. And, as an abstract landscape painter, I've always been interested in moments of movement. The rhythmic way that shapes move in space has always fascinated me. I was riveted by when I flew in a plane for the first time, and that experience of movement from above has always informed my work. This little painting here is part of a series of 40 panels that were all 8x10 and shown at the same time. It was a seawall series, and those were all moments of movement. I respond differently to paintings in different scales. While these paintings may be similar thematically, the processes are very different for me. The small paintings are intimate, and they're often visceral responses to places I visited. They're painted in a more expressionistic, spontaneous way, highlighting the specificity of the moment. Alternatively, the large painting, and this painting's particularly Gestural Landscape, is more indicative of a collective experience, something beyond a single moment. The large painting is more abstracted responses, multi-layered and more deliberate, with brushstrokes that are more varied. While the size of the canvases vary, the depiction of the moment of movement is primary. It's created through light, color, and composition. Thank you for an opportunity to talk a little bit about my paintings. I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Beth. Very wonderful. The next artist that will share the screen with me is Jacqueline Rada. And if she lets me, I will ask a question to her. I found, Jacqueline, that the expansive subject matter of these pieces, the sea, are treated in an intimate scale. The figurative, quasi-abstract parts of a decaying pier give the scale of the size of the sea you paint. In what order do you create your pieces? Smaller to larger, or vice versa? And why are there two versions, the small and the big? And as you give their names and talk about this, I'll show you the work as it goes. You have to unmute yourself, Jacqueline. But she will.
Thank you very much, Cecilia, and I'm so pleased and thrilled to be in this show with all my incredible colleagues. It's a pleasure and an honor. Well, this is part of a series which I call Hudson River Spirits, inspired by the decaying pilings in the Hudson River. When I had a studio right off the river, I used to walk along, and these pilings have like, seem to be animated with a life. And when I thought back to the life that they did have, 100 years ago or less, when all the ships were coming in and, this was a very busy place. Well, those spirits still there for me. And anyway, so this is one of a series of about 10 or 12. So I typically begin my work with a simple on-site notation or perhaps a photo of a subject that resonates with me and wants to be recorded. It's something I want to respond to and explore, usually in more than one painting. And when I review my on-site notations or my photos, I usually choose the one or two that really still has that feeling that I had when I was looking at it physically. And I proceed to create a series of 4x6 postcard size preliminary drawings using either pastel, graphite, color pencils, and I always use Stonehenge paper. These small studies help me to edit out all the details of the subject to the most essential information that conveys what I originally felt. So to answer your last question, I always do small one first, and then it sometimes goes to the larger, not always, but that's it.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Beautifully
Welcome.
said. Yeah, and it's great to know some more about your work. It's been an honor to receive all the works that I had seen in the original presentation, of the open call, and then to see it physically is amazing. So I invite everyone on the Zoom as well to come in person if you can. Although I've seen some friends that are not here in the States. So I hope we'll show this well. The next artist is Marianne, and her work is above scale. Then we'll do Yvette below, who is above the wording for our show. Marianne, can you?
Okay, hi, I'm Marianne Barcelona, and the large piece is oil on canvas, and the small piece is oil on paper. And they're both inspired by my travels in Iceland.
Wonderful.
You have a question for me, I know.
Yes, I do. The title of your work, Witness, is so touching as we all sadly experience climate change. You describe, and one can see your large piece as being layered. How then do your smaller pieces come about? Are they usually produced before or after you create your large piece?
Okay, well, I have a lot of trouble working large, and I always feel like I should do it, but I don't like it as much as small. It's uncomfortable because I can't see what I'm doing. When I get close enough to put a mark on, I can't see the whole canvas. When I step back, I see something I don't like or I want to change, and then when I go up to there again, I can't see it. So it's a difficult thing, and I get frustrated. And the little piece, this little piece was done in the middle of the big piece, just to try to loosen me up and try to feel like I have some control over what I'm working with. Yeah, and this big piece probably has about 37 different versions of the same scene underneath it. I think I'm done, then I look and there's something I don't like, so I try to change it, but that means other parts have to change, and pretty soon the whole painting is changed. So I have photographs of 37 different paintings. I wish I had started over each time.
That is such a wonderful artist depiction of an artist working in the studio, these layers. You articulated it so nicely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to Yvette's work, which actually talks to everyone's work because it is breaking with the scale of the show. We see Yvette's work there. And she will share the screen with me. And Yvette, you have to unmute
Unmute
yourself.
myself, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Sorry.
So
Yeah. These three pieces are part of a series of about 35 pieces called Swimming on Air, and they're acrylic and acrylic paint and wood dowels on shaped canvas. And I'll wait for your question, Cecilia.
Okay, I'm trying to focus more on them. It was amazing to see your work, and it was great that we could do the hanging together, because the placement is also so crucial. Yvette, your aerodynamic pieces are literally on another plane as the other pieces in the show, creating a dialogue of scale and dimension with the other pieces in the room. Are buoyancy and flotation recurring themes of your work? How would you describe the interaction or relationship of your work to the other works in the show? Thank you.
Okay, so I really was just thinking of the scale show. And so when I think of scale, I think of a wide open space beyond the dimensions of the actual artwork. And my sculptural paintings have no frames and no boundaries, so that the surrounding space on the wall is as important as the pieces themselves, and the entire wall becomes the canvas. In relationship to my work and all the work in the show, I think viewers might focus in to see details and then move back to see the overall work. In my work, I don't invite the viewer into the picture plane, but I invite them to the overall space around the piece. So I always do deal with a sense of infinite air and space, as opposed to, even though they are flat pieces on the wall, mounted flat, to feel the sculptural space of the pieces and the whole space around them. So
that is wonderful. And indeed, your work brings us to an area that is like, I wanted something to break with the scale of the show. And thank you for doing that for us. I've seen your work installed in many places, and it always creates this sense of wonder, like they're going to start moving around.
Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you.
So now we have a different guest, because she is actually in person with us. And you can see the scale of her work as well. I am so excited to have Monique Alain here with us. And I will let her introduce her work.
Hey, it's so nice to be here. I'm so happy to be part of this beautiful exhibition. All my work is about establishing connections with my surround, connection with my ground. And those two works are connections with other images done by other people. In this case, it was from the Hammond Museum, the news image from January. So the name is January Microcosmos. And this is the palette of January Microcosmos. And yes.
I have a question for you, Monique. The unifying element of your pieces, the large and the small, is the color. How come the gestures are so different? Also, could you explain the meaning of their title, Microcosmos? Thank you.
Sure. Well, they have a different gesture, like we feel differently depending on the moment. We have different moods, and sometimes we are wanted to expand, to feel free, and sometimes we are a little bit tight and we deal with control and movement. So in this case, I need more space because I want to feel free. It's a gestural expression of what I feel. And here it's a controlled movement, and both they were happening during the COVID, because previously I was doing a project with in-person people, and I couldn't do that because of quarantine. So I had to be alone, and I was trying to keep feeling this freedom, although I was a little bit confined. And this is the confinement, and this is the free sensation. And microcosmos, it's because COVID, it's a joke. Instead of microcosmos, it's microcosmos.
Beautiful reinvention of what we are going through today. And now I'm going to ask Janet to share the screen with me. Okay, hi Janet.
Hi, Cecile.
You can introduce your work to us as I will get closer to it.
Okay, my name is Janet Goldner, and these two steel wall sculptures are about the theme of migration, which I've been working on a lot lately. They're welded steel. And the bigger one is called Meandering Border Rio Grande, and it's and the smaller one is called Border Landscape. I did a voyage to the U.S.-Mexican border in Texas a few years ago, and so that's where these pieces were inspired.
Wonderful. I have a question for you.
Great.
How would you describe, well, you did describe your subject matter somewhat, and what are the different processes you use to create your smaller and your larger metal sculptures?
Well, the larger one is, I use a welding torch. I have a welding studio in the Bronx, and I use a welding torch as a drawing instrument. So in the larger piece, I'm using the welding torch to cut the line of this meandering border into the steel. And one of the things that impressed me at the border is kind of the absurdity of the border itself, where something as simple as a river becomes a real barrier to people and cultures, and it divides us. And you can see that as the border meanders, there's these little bits, like if the top part is the US and the bottom part is Mexico, then you can see this little spit of the US going into Mexico, and it just makes the border, absurd. Yes. So it's really that piece is really it's really about that. It's kind of a plea about this absurdity of these borders. And then the smaller piece is a way that I've been working for a long time, and I call it a steel collage, where I'm taking scraps of steel that are outtakes from other sculptures that I've done, recycling my own forms into something else. And so it gives me these wonderful forms that I didn't come up with for this, but I can recycle them, and it suggests, unintended or unintended forms that I can put together. And again, the landscape along the border and the US-Mexican border in Texas it's very mountainous in some places on both sides. And so these are about, the river and those mountains.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Janet.
Yes, thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be doing this tour, and also to be listening to all the different artists talk about their work. It's really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So now I will share the screen with Ellen and ask you to introduce yourself. And as I show your work up close, I was saying I wish people could see the metallic of the work. So I'm trying to get a little closer. But and you guys must come see in person. Also, there's a smaller work next to it, which is a dry point, beautifully, the smallest work of our exhibition, a gym. And if you can introduce yourself and the titles of your work, Ellen.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Ellen Weider, and my two works in the show are my large scale work is called Bronzer, and my small scale work is called Deuce. And you'll notice I use the same image, dice or die, in both my dry point print and in the acrylic and gouache painting. So I've always liked dice. I like to play with them as a kid. I love the markings and their cube shape. I love tossing them. I didn't particularly care what the games were. I just liked the objects. So I was making dry point prints when I created Deuce. And I think I created it especially for a mini print exhibition, and it did make it into the exhibition, so that was nice. And after I was trained as a painter, and then I turned to printmaking for many years. And I was anxious to get back to painting. So when I did, I kept some of my themes. And it was very liberating to turn to painting because I had such a bigger expanse. But you can see I still use, I still float my images in kind of an ambiguous space. And the challenge of making the tiny, tiny image, I think it's an inch, you know, the plate size is about an inch. It was challenging, but it was fun challenging.
Yeah, I can really see your work has to do with games and fun, and even the colors you choose, you know, they make me want to sing and dance. Thank you so much,
Nice.
Ellen.
You're
It was a
welcome.
pleasure. Yeah. I'm going to call Shira Thoren to come share the screen with me.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you. Yay, here you are. So
I'm
let's.
Shira Thoren. I have two pieces in this exhibition. They're both very different from one another, but they both, I'm using the medium of Venetian plaster. The blue painting, the larger one, I mixed a pigment with the Venetian plaster, and then there's additional plaster on top. That's the white part. The smaller paint, and that one is called Blue Stone. The smaller painting, it's again the Venetian plaster in a raw form, just white on scrap linen and cotton.
Wonderful. To me, I thought they were like, so, I don't know if it's so you or so the subject matter, but it was where the whole abstraction and landscape connected, because this blue, I kept, and then the little boats, I was like, oh, this must be the ocean. And then I looked, I was like, no, it doesn't have to be that. You know, it's my head doing things. But thank you so much for being in this show. I am so happy. And I would say that Shira, in your two pieces contain abstracted quasi-geometric shapes within labored yet flat backgrounds. You give us clues that you are referring to floating and water, yet a feeling of ambiguity remains. How would you say the smaller piece relates to the larger one, if at all?
Okay. I like to tackle a subject by working on opposite scales. I start with the scope of small work, often making multiple versions leading to a large work. I treasure the little pieces as seedling for a big tree that develop from them. Working in different scales give me the ability to highlight different characteristics of an idea. The change of scale inherently change the conversation around the prompt of the work. My work is informed by elements of nature. It is not an exact interpretation, but more of an impression. As I work from small scale to large painting, shapes and meaning get adjusted and shifted. Often, a suggestive shape, such a vessel, this is on the small painting, takes more of an abstract form and can be interpreted in a broader meaning, as presented by the two pieces in this exhibition. Thank you, Cecilia.
Yeah, thank you, Shira. Wonderful. Now I'm going to ask, we're moving to Shelley Haven's work. And Shelley's work is in our invite. You might have seen it already. And here's. And thank you, Audrey, for doing all the sharing. Here we are. This is wonderful. It has been so great to know you and your work, Shelley. Why don't you introduce yourself and say the titles of them?
Yes. Thank you, Cecilia, and everyone that's worked on this show and all the other artists. It's wonderful. My name is Shelley Haven, and the larger work I'm showing here is titled Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. And it's one of 4 paintings that I did from this site. In my studio, it's oil on birch panel. And the smaller one is Morro Bay 4, and it's one of a group of 5 watercolors that I did in the studio also. And yes, so.
Okay, I will. I'm always caught here, like walking close to your work. It just has all these amazing details. Shelley, in your large painting, The Grand Canyon of Yellowstone and the small watercolor Morro Bay, we see and experience vastness in both of them. They are full of detail and color nuance. Do you have a size preference? If so, does this preference vary at different phases of your career, or does it vary according to the subject matter?
Thank you for the question. I like working in all sizes, small and the large, and I also work in between, which isn't shown here. Awareness of scale has been integral to my practice always. It influences how I work, and I hope also how the viewer will see the work. My large works are usually in oil paint and made in the studio. And these I paint more by intuition than sight. My arm's length doesn't really allow me to see the whole painting as I'm working the surface. And so I feel as though I'm in the landscape, which is very special for me when I can't be out hiking in it. I can be in it through my painting. Working on this larger scale also becomes almost a dance for me as I move around the surface and then stepping back from time to time to see the whole. Then I'm stepping back in to continue building layers of movement and color. And so it's a very different experience than working small. And I hope that the viewer also dances as they look, going up close to see the detail and back to see the large. The smaller artwork encourages me to embrace the intimate and give closer attention to detail. This smaller work was painted during the early days of the pandemic when I closed my studio temporarily and was also recuperating from a dislocated shoulder, so I couldn't work large. Most of my small work is done on site. My early interest in this smaller scale comes from printmaking and using engraver's copper, and also my love of books. The notion of holding an artwork in my hands is part of the appeal, as well as making that small scale. In normal times, the small work is made on breaks from hiking or in local gardens. And I'm reacting to the immediacy and spontaneity to the sights and sounds and aromas of the locale. In this small work, the viewer is invited to peer through a window into this other world to explore its secrets. And as objects, one can read them almost like a book and sometimes hold them. So
Thank you so much,
Cecilia.
Shelley. Wonderful. I hope everyone can come here and experience them. Let's see if we can find Cassandra Jennings Hall, who has done these works, which have a contrast in them, but she might not be here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe she's here.
So I will show you Cassandra's amazing work, which I thought was such an interesting such an interesting contrast with Shelley and Shira's work. The colors are similar, but the whole motif of the circles and the circulation is totally different. Here is Cassandra's small work, which is called Selflessness, and her large work is called The Path Fully Traveled. I also felt there was a connection with Ellen Weider's work in the circles of the dice, and was very intrigued by this work, which kind of hangs as a fabric or something thick. It really is worth coming to look at Cassandra's work up close. I hope everyone will have the chance to do that. And now I'm going to invite Sandra Indig to share the screen with me. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the light changed. I'm under the mezzanine now. Let's see. Oops.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Indig, and I'm very honored to be among such fantastic people, bright and into whatever is happening, picking up all the signals of the present and the past and whatever, and somehow getting it into their artwork. Let's see.
Would you like? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk about the work.
Can you give the titles of your work?
Okay, yeah, I was just going to do that. Thank you. The orange red one with the blue on the left, unfortunately it's glass, so there's a lot of reflection, is called Mercy Mercy. It's done with oil stick on paper, archival paper, and it's obviously a very, if you see it in person, intense piece. It was done, I don't know, in a certain mood that I was in, or when is it going to stop? Mercy, mercy. And the smaller piece is yellow on green, or yellow and green. It's done with ink, and again, it's done on archival paper. And what occurred was, concerning this smaller work, is that circumstances changed where I had to close my studio, and because of COVID and other situations in my life. So I preferred to, it gave me the opportunity to work outdoors more. And I fortunately live in an area where there are a lot of pocket parks, but they're very well attended. So out of a need for privacy, I worked smaller, and I like to work small anyway, because I can see the whole thing and I can have the experience right there in my hand. So the need for privacy in public settings determines the size of the artwork. Small means getting up close, being intimate, whereas a large work allows me to walk into its space. Choice of scale in a larger painting is like my creative process. It is intuitive and associative. We tend to recall negative, sometimes traumatic events with great clarity and for longer periods of time than we do pleasant ones. This work, Mercy, Mercy, is obviously reflective of a traumatic experience.
And Sandra, thank you, because it does reflect so much of what we are going through today, you know,
Yeah.
socially.
I find that my work, oddly enough, I don't know if everyone has this experience, is very prophetic. I mean, even work that I've done years ago, what it was saying, because often poetry accompanies my work, has come to pass, not always for the good, sometimes. And yeah, and the Mercy, Mercy is obviously the larger of the two. And the smaller one reflects the dynamic. Mercy, Mercy color is highly saturated, pulsating with an inner rhythm indicating tension, stress, anxiety, and fear. The blue of the mask-like face freezes with the inability to free sure obliteration by the enveloping red heat. It seems to call out to the nearby diminutive yellow, which is on the right. If we could move over to the right, it might be your left. No, the yellow one, yellow and green.
Oh.
Yeah, it seems to call out to the smaller piece for some help. It's because that piece is strangely peaceful, whereas the other one is certainly not peaceful. The larger
Thank you,
one.
Sandra.
I like, excuse me, I like the interrelationships between my productions because they provoke and surprise me, the creator and the beholder. Conversations in the spaces between my paintings and with me are most welcome. I'm sorry, I just wanted to finish.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's wonderful how your pieces talk to each other too. I'm very happy to have them in the show. And now we are going to share the screen with Walter.
Hello, everybody. I too am honored to be a part of this show. My name is Walter Brown, and the two pieces are both paint-filled plastic bags. So, Cecilia, if you have a question for me.
I do. Walter, by encapsulating paint in plastic bags, you must need to plan what size things will be from the onset. Is that so? Do smaller pieces inspire you to create a big one or vice versa? I also noticed the interplay of colors in the plastic zippers of the bags. And I will show them more closely. There are so many amazing details. And I'm also so happy it's close to the window. So come visit them at daytime here.
Even though I've been doing this for 5 years now, putting paint into plastic bags, I'm still learning the medium. And what I like to do is start with the small size and then move up to the larger sizes if and when I feel like doing it. So apart from the environmental connotations, putting paint into plastic bags appeals to my need for security, for orderliness, and containment. Once it's in the bag, it's there. So in that sense, the bigger bags hold more paint, which may be a good thing, particularly if there is a value attached to more. More paint, bigger, better, more security, more safety. I think in our society, in our culture, bigger is frequently considered to be better. So would that mean that these smaller bags are less important due to their smaller size rather? And I think not. A small plastic bag can hold a small treasure, perhaps a diamond or some other small, beautiful object. In this instance, this one is called Mystic Landscape. There is a beautiful, dreamy landscape within that small piece, but you have to approach the artwork to even notice it. So I envision this piece as a piece that someone might hang in their bedroom, and it would be the first thing they would see upon arising in the morning. It's a very personal piece, largely due to its smallness. And yes, sometimes good things do come in small packages, although we, for irrational reasons, continue to value largeness for its own sake.
Thank you, Walter. That was really wonderful. I'm going to pretend it's my bedroom and we'll look again. Thank you. And now I have the second artist that is here with me in person. And I am so happy to have Ali Berman to share this amazing work that she does.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ali Berman, and this is my art. It's, as you can see, it's a little dark here, but with the light, you can bring out a lot of the detail. And the thing about my art is it is interactive. You move it, feel comfortable when you come here. I'm okay with it. And just hold it, and you can move a piece off, and you can look at the detail in the piece. There's so much going on. And then you can put it back or find a new place, a new home to move it and find new connections of line and color, because it's all about the connections. We are all connected. And that is a very important aspect of my work. The individual pieces are like us, individuals, and we are part of a greater society. Thank you so much, Cecilia, and the group that put Scale together, because scale is so important. You know, when we can pull back from the earth, we can really see how incredibly beautiful it is from a distance. And then you come in close and you see the beauty, the detail in a small leaf. But it's so important in terms of environment, all the issues that we are having. And so the connections, that we are all connected, what we do is going to affect others. And so you can see the connections that I've created, and you can make your own connections when you come here. Is there any questions that you had, Cecilia? Yes. And I paint acrylic and acrylic I paint on American hardwood, and there's Velcro behind this piece and magnet behind this. And this actually is only about 2.5 feet wide. I do 40 foot, 60 foot, 100 foot walls, but we couldn't do that here today.
Yeah, yeah. We all, that's great to know the scope of the scale of what you work, Ali. I think that is terrific.
Thank you.
Your abstractions play with the continuity and disruption of a moving line to actually create movable pieces. Are the number of the pieces determined before or after they are painted? And how do you use modules in your larger or smaller overall artworks?
Very good question. So we are born as individuals, and then we become part of the society. And that's how I do my paintings. I cut the pieces first, I prepare them, and I paint them first. Then I put them together and I continue to paint. And that, to me, philosophically, is how we are born and how we become part of the society. I don't plan how many pieces. I just think if I have an exhibit, I know what size wall I have to fill. So if it's a 50-foot wall, that will make a decision. I make the smaller pieces 3 inches by 3 inches, and the larger pieces are 5 inches by 5 inches. And that determines size to some extent. But in terms of the overall, sky's the limit.
Do you want to show us the
Oh,
3D
yes.
possibility?
So
We have an
please-
extra.
Right, so please understand, my philosophy is there's more than meets the eye. When you look at it one way, you see one thing. When you look at it another way, you're going to see a different thing. These are special 3D glasses that I have worked with a company. They are not like in the movies. And please feel free, put them over your glasses, or if you don't wear glasses, just put them on to look at the painting from a distance and take a breath when you do it. Breathing is very important in life. And unfortunately, for the last couple of years, breath has been dangerous, but you got your masks on and use the glasses. I can't show you how it looks. There's no way to interpret it, but this is a special surprise. And then just put it back on the table next to the painting. So have a wonderful and safe time, people, and let's stay connected.
Oh, that is so beautiful. We have with us an artist very special to this show, who created all the our invites and our checklists and our labels, and she represents the artwork that is quintessentially small, because she does amazingly intricate work on a space that is reserved for a quick scribble, a name. And I don't believe she's here because she had a medical appointment. Her name is Pauline Galeana. But I did have a question for her, and she sent me the answer. So bear with me to represent Pauline in this talk. I will bring the computer closer to her work, which actually has numbers, because it's hard to, you have to move in close, although they're very clear, but they can be quite different one from another. And I was amazed at how prolific and beautiful these works are. I think this one looks like a whole earth, I forgot, a tornado. And to me, this one is a little more like hair, but it's endless. It's a beautiful collection. And so I asked Pauline to answer to me. I said, Pauline, most people set out to scribble or neatly print letters on labels. Labels are naturally small and will be read over and over again as one searches in drawers or boxes. They are naturally small and they give us clues to the content of what is stored. How did it occur to you to use this as a space for intricate and delicate drawings? So Pauline has answered me. I utilize labeling tags exactly the same way as you described, though I use figurative or abstract mark making instead of words. Each of these tags refers to visual content I'm interested in and that I intend to develop at one point. The small scale of the paper support, the tag, coerces me to concentrate on the essential of the analysis of random observations. I thought that was very well put. I am really happy that you were here with us. Pauline is the last person in the show. And I was wondering, and we have a few minutes, if people would like to ask questions. We'll show an overall look of our space. And Audrey, maybe you can help me come look at the questions.
In the chat, maybe?
Yeah,
if
you can
people have-
put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and say hello. I see Elise that was in our last show, and Justina, and Lois, and I see Monroe. I'm so thankful that you are all here. Maybe we should put it in the gallery view. So there, yeah. There we go. Yay. So feel free if you have any questions, or if you'd like to say some comments as we close.
There's one question in the chat, Cecilia. Someone is asking.
Thank you, Regina, for putting this. How did you gather this amazing group of artists? Hey, good question. I am part of the New York Artists Circle, which is a networking group of over 400 artists. And I was invited through Barbara Sherman, who is from the First Presbyterian Church and the Great Hall Gallery and the Art at First Committee, and the Artist Circle to do a joint action. So I came to the space, I thought about the scale, and I made an open call where artists could apply. Not, they only had to answer 2 questions along with their work. One was, how do you consider scale within your work? And the second one was, why did you join these 2 works together? We just didn't want the small work to be too large, or the large to be much higher than the scale which we had here. But other than that, sky was the limit, and the variety was so big, and the work was so interesting that I had to ask them, can I make 2? And the only reason that there are 2 titles, the first was Figuration and Cosmic Themes, and the second one is Landscapes and Abstraction, was because it was just a way to be able to make 2 significant shows. It was not really a measuring of which was, and that was a special challenge for me to curate as well. I hope you felt we fulfilled this. Anyone else? Yeah. Allie, feel free. Yeah. Okay, so I want to, if we don't have any more questions, then I wanted to thank you all for coming to our presentation. It's so great to see all of you. Thank you to Audrey and Allie and Monique who are here. And please come see it in person. There is nothing like it. Yes.
Round of applause.
Thank you for being with us at this time. It was a pleasure. Okay, so here we go.
Thank you everyone for joining us, and please do come to the show, and also check our website for updates about Art at First and all of the Art at First programs that we have. So you're welcome to any and all of them. So thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.